just jump over now to introduce Ian, who's been using our playback things that I showed you before. We've bundled that into a completely different product called Notion Conducting, the book you have in front of you. And I'll hand over to Ian Cook to take it from here.
Thanks, Chris. Well, I've been using Notion Conducting for the last 3 years. It's only been available in Australia for that period of time. I first saw it at a conducting conference in America, the American Conductors Guild in Toronto in 2004. And the reason for this is that some of the scores in the package were still under copyright, and we were in that 20-year copyright period. So unfortunately in Australia and England, they weren't allowed to sell it, but it was very popular in America. And we'll show you a very short video during the presentation of how it's used at Berkeley College, where it's certainly been one of its key supporters since it was introduced back in the early 2000s. What appealed to me so much with this program, that you could have a live ensemble, and I first used it in an undergraduate setting at my last university, which was the University of Newcastle in the School of Creative Arts. We could get together a group of students, and each time we did that, it was around about 32, 33 students for a compressed course that lasted for 6 or 7 days, and was very much modelled after the European conducting schools, and I thought that was a great way of delivering it rather than on a weekly basis, although this year at Avondale College, where I'm now teaching, we've actually used it on a weekly basis. There's some advantages in that, but also the compressed delivery is very good. So, to tell you a little bit about Notion Conducting, we'll talk some of the features of it, and then we're going to actually get you to come and try it out. It's a great technology resource for something that normally technology is not related to. And the great thing with it is that you can actually have a live ensemble that reacts to a conductor. And it's very interactive between the participants in the class and also the conductor out the front. I found it great for developing, for professional development. In New South Wales, starting I think this year or was last year, all teachers for 5 years out have to do 100 hours of professional development per year. And I think that's going to be rolled out to every teacher in the next couple of years. And we've now put up a professional development course, which I'll show you a little bit later on in the presentation, with NISA, and it was approved in 5 weeks. Even the Deputy Director of NISA, of Professional Development, rang us and said, this is a fantastic course, we're going to rubber stamp it now. We trialled it in Tamworth at the beginning of the year, and we had wonderful feedback, so we tweaked our first presentation. The great thing with it, it's a 6-hour delivery, and then if we add another set of content, we can then take another 6 hours, and we've got it planned for roughly up to 3 offerings, so a teacher would actually get 18 hours under that system. It's also very good for elementary conducting classes, and I used it in a undergraduate tertiary context, which went down very well with wonderful student feedback. And I've also used it for one-on-one. I've got about 5 students at home now that actually got through the whole program. I've had another student who is now doing his Masters at Tasmania Con with Johannes Fritz, and it's really set him up great to move on to the next stage. As I said, the great thing with it is it gives you a live ensemble. You've heard from Chris the sounds of the London Symphony. There's a couple of scores going around if you want to have a look at the range. It goes from very basic, just giving downbeats with a rebound with a harp sound, and even that takes a little bit of practice to get it, the harp all being the articulation and matching. But and then we move on to examples like the first movement of Beethoven 1, Bach chorales using a wind quartet. So it's progressive through the whole course. The great thing with it, it gives you a lot of practical examples for elementary conducting. I think it's best used in probably the first 12, 18 months of a young conductor who wants to take on a conducting experience. And it's also, as I said, very good for professional development in bringing school teachers in, teachers who are in front of school orchestras, teachers who are in front of school bands, because at the end of the day we're teaching them a language, or developing a language to teach to our young members in the ensemble, and for the teacher, the conductor, to build up those resources. I mean, you're going to build a great library of non-verbal communication. You're going to increase the ensemble experience for the students. And then the purpose of the conductor out the front of the ensemble certainly takes on a much greater role. Up until now, we've had a number of resources that have been available for teaching, particularly in undergraduate situations, things like piano, recorded examples, CD, which is not great, as we all know. For a while I used the Joseph Labuta book, Basic Conducting Technique, and the hands-on approach to conducting by Anthony Maiello, which was great. I mean, we could use students in the class who played any instrument, and we could put together a 4-part arrangement of all the score transpositions. It was great at the very early stages, but I think the notion conducting curriculum really does go way beyond that now. And once students got past that, I used to use some of the chamber ensemble examples, the Schoenberg arrangements, if you don't know about those. They're wonderful. They're large orchestral works reduced down to chamber proportions, but you're still needing a lot of players, live players, to do this. And with a novice conductor, an elementary conductor, they're being put in front of an ensemble maybe a little bit too early, where through the notion conducting they can be actually working with their peers, because everyone in the ensemble is actually in the same boat. So there's this interaction, and if you muck up, say, bars between 10 and 16, you can keep on going back until you get it right, till you get the cueing right, till you get the dynamics. You can develop right-hand technique, you can develop left-hand technique in a very relaxed atmosphere until you get to that point of going in front of a live ensemble. So, as I said, the alternative was the notion conducting curriculum. As I said, we can use it in a compressed delivery mode in undergraduate tertiary. We can use it on a weekly basis. We can also use it as a one-day professional development course, and also for small group and tuition. The great thing is that with students, they can go away and practice with each other. You only need 2 people, one tapping the rhythm and one doing the conducting. And even if that's not possible, you can press the space bar. Admittedly, it is metronomic, but you can actually practice at home with the playback. You've got no control over the tempo until you have another party involved. But the great thing is, as you saw with Chris's price list, it's also very inexpensive. It's about $140 for the workbook and the software. You can put it on 5 computers, but with my students, I didn't tell them that little bit, because I want everyone to own the set of scores, because it's very good value. To share around the scores is not a great thing. One of the things great with this, just like Notion 6, you can add the MIDI keyboard. So if you add a MIDI keyboard to the laptop, you can control dynamics, you can also control phrasing and articulation to a certain level. And that's a great way of looking at other things. You can also program wrong notes into a file. So if someone plays an F sharp and it should have been an F natural, the conductor has to pick up those little things, which, it's one of the oral responsibilities of a conductor, of listening to things like that. So you can actually program that and save the file as well. This is just an example of a professional development course that we've put up for NISA in New South Wales, and we based that on a trial run earlier this year. It's a 6-hour presentation. The first hour we went through a lot of basic things with, so we were all on the same level. Fair enough, it might be very basic for some of the participants, but I think we had 12 in the group in Tamworth, and so we kind of got through various basic things. Then the next hour we looked at the role of the baton and starting to use beating frames, the use and the purpose of the right hand and the left hand, and basic time pattern conducting patterns. And then over the next 2 hours and the following 2 hours, we had interactive workshops using the exercises first, and then incorporating 1 or 2 pieces of repertoire. This is a typical score, and I've given you a photocopy of the slow movement of the Elgar Serenade. When it comes, we have this NT line across the top, which is the rhythm line. So what a person in the ensemble, that is the members of the London Symphony, you can either play the whole score with a common NT line, and that's the best way of starting off, because what we do is we just tap, and we'll do this in a moment, just tap the rhythm and out comes the 4 parts. But what you can actually do is break it down into individual instruments and with a different NT line. So you're actually building ensemble skills, and we've actually seen that could work very well, just developing ensemble skills in school children in a, say, year 9, 10 class or high school. So the other great thing, if you've got in say a professional development course, you might have some string players. So you mute the first violins, give them the string part, and they can play with the virtual orchestra. We can develop, use different NT lines, and as I said, we can cue in or put in wrong notes, so we can save things and also change dynamics, a lot of the articulation and markings. The other great thing that supports the students at home is that there's video lessons for every piece, or in groups of pieces on different aspects of legato, conducting styles, all the way through, and actually very good support for the very early part of the course. As I said, it's a great experience for a student, particularly if they feel nervous in getting in front of a group for the first time, because you've got maybe only 6, 8, 10, 12 people in front of the class. What I tried, which is a little different from the video that demonstrates this, is that we put the computers through a mixer, and then had a speaker in a stereo format, and so you can actually hear the orchestra back. At Berkeley, they've got individual stations where each computer has a set of these monitor speakers, which works really well. But I found that the mixer worked very well because you had quite good control over it. What happens if someone gets out or misreads a part, so does the London Symphony. So you get instant feedback. And it does take a little while to get that working and getting students used to it. In the next slide, I think, no, I did that. We'll see a breakdown of the, this is the score, and then we go to the next one. We have a pull-down menu where we can select conductor left centre, conductor right, and conductor right, which is violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass. And here's the violin 1 with its NT line. In the next one, violin 2, it has a different one. And it's really interesting, teachers for the first time having to read this, counting 4+2 quaver pulses and having to tap that. It's really putting some people on the spot. And it really, it's interesting when we get down to the bass part, just actually counting that and hearing quite a different rhythm on top of it. So bringing the ensemble together does take some practice. And when I was using it on a weekly basis, I used to tell the students, you have to go home and practice your part. In other words, practicing the tapping. And after a week, just like a live ensemble, the ensemble skills really do build up. So the MIDI keyboard, when it's added, takes the keystrokes, which we just normally use on the A line. You can tap any of the keys on that, and that's what will make the rhythm work. And the other great thing that that you could use this program for, if you're in a small tertiary institution, you might want to give students an orchestral experience, and you might only have a handful of instruments, so you can mute various instruments that you do have, and then put a combination of virtual and acoustic instruments. As Chris said, he's conducted Handel's Messiah with the whole package, but then if you have a group of, say, you might have half a dozen violins, where you could turn off the first violins, give them the first violin part, and then you use a combination of acoustic and live instruments. So what I'd like to show you, first of all, it goes for about 4 minutes, is just the whole overview package, but I think it's actually on YouTube, so you can actually follow it up at another time. But this gives you a very good example of, or an idea of how Notion has worked. And admittedly, this is in a tertiary context. I believe at Berkeley, everyone in first year undergrad has to do a Notion conducting course.
The sounds of Notion are unbelievable. It's a London Symphony Orchestra.
My reaction was, wow.
Notion's like playing with a real orchestra.
There's no tool for teaching better than that.
It gives us a sound of live music or live ensemble.
Extremely valuable to teach people how to lead an orchestra.
Notion is crucial for the development of good conductors quickly.
We wanted an environment that not only in the classroom would create an orchestra, allow people to follow the conductor, allow the conductor to interact with live human beings and still hear the sound of that orchestra, but also can go off and study that score, learn how it sounds. As a matter of fact, we think now of this conducting program as a conducting environment, a learning environment for conducting.
I think the hallmark of a Berkeley education has always been that our students learn by doing. And the great thing about Notion in the conducting classroom is that that's what the students are doing. They're learning by doing. They're not thinking about it, they're not practicing in an artificial way, they're actually doing it. And I think that's what really sets this program apart from others that we've tried.
I think what surprises me the most about Notion is how realistic it is.
I was really impressed with the full orchestral sounds.
The sound of Notion is exquisite.
It's as good as if you're listening to a CD.
You can concentrate more on what you want to do with the music. It's like a whole sound coming back at you.
Just having that response, immediate feedback from Notion made it really easy to get better quickly.
The workbook itself contains a number of scores for conducting study. There are complete videos of each excerpt in the workbook with the conductor actually conducting the entire composition. Then there are instructional videos which show things like how to hold the baton, how to give the different beat patterns, things like that.
So the workbook progresses logically from easier pieces all the way to the most difficult piece, which is a Puccini aria.
Yes, and that's a very interesting thing because we actually recorded the aria a cappella by a really fine soprano named Catherine Wright. The conductor now has to follow the voice, but at the same time control the players, and which is very much like what happens in an orchestra pit during an opera performance.
And that's quite a difficult experience for the first time because they really have to spend a lot of time understanding what Mimi's aria is all about. You can control the first beat, but the rubato between bar line to bar line is she controls it. Then you have to read that and then communicate to your orchestra. So what we're going to do now, this is a very simple exercise where a conductor leaves their baton on the stand. So have you got this set up, Chris? Yeah. Okay, what we're going to do, I'm just going to give downbeats and you'll hear the articulation of the harp, and you can move the speed around. And although that's very simple, having 10 people doing that all at once, you go click, 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 and then just by practicing it, you'll feel the ensemble and they get used to the keyboard. What we're going to do now is go to, how's the time? Because I'd like some people to come and be part of the LSO. So do we have any volunteers? Okay, one. Great. So this is the Elgar, and what we're going to do, when I've used this, we've normally, as I said, use the a common NT line, and then what we might do is I might divide one up.
So what do we press?
Okay, so you can press any of the A line. Okay. Okay, so an example. So we're going to press, say, L. Okay, and then we can go back with our back arrows. Okay, and I'm going to conduct it, and you're going to have to follow. Yep. Yeah. Okay, that's only an example. This is not a live example. Okay, so you're going to have. Are you doing it? Okay, great. Okay, so you've got to follow that line there. Okay, if you make a mistake, you can quickly go back.
Oh, cool.
Okay, good. Now, as a orchestral member, just have a quick look at the score. What's involved? You've got obviously a tempo change, a tempo. Here we've got a molto a stringendo, and although it's not a rail there, if you know the piece, you know that normally is just stretched a little bit, and the tempo there. Chris is going to actually be able to control dynamics, but on this version, to start off with, we've only just got the rhythm input. I'm in 4. Yeah.
Isn't it in 2?
Quaver equals. Okay. So straight back.
So conducting
Yep.
quavers in 4.
Yeah, I should have actually said that before we start. Okay. It's not as easy, and once you get used to it, it's fine. So when someone gets out, it's very easy to hear. So Bob, we'll go back to the beginning. We'll try again.
This is not as easy as it looks. Just got the phone. But it's fun.
As you can see, it really does teach ensemble skills, particularly I found the students who've been, say, rock musicians or contemporary musicians or piano players or vocalists, to put them into an instrumental context, it really is a very big, steep learning curve.
So just one more
Yep.
question. What we're seeing up there is for you. Okay.
Yep, yeah. You look at your
I'm
score.
looking at
No,
that
no.
and going, hang on a minute.
That's
Yeah.
not moving. That's
Okay.
not moving. Okay. Because what we've got is 2 individual parts.
Rightio.
If we had 12 people in the class, which that's what I normally do, 10 to 12, we'll have 12 different computers. And then you can pan it, and you can have 4 first violins, 4 second violins, 2 violas, 2 cellos, 2 basses. So you can really build up the whole versatility of the ensemble. But to actually get everyone playing together, I found this is the first step to get everyone playing the common rhythm.
So my next question
Yep.
is, do you have to hold the key
No,
down?
it
So
just tap.
It just
Yep,
okay.
yep.
Don't have to hold the key.
I suggest you don't look at that.
Yeah,
Look at
don't
your
look at
score.
that.
Look at your
It's
score.
easy.
Is that? Maybe I'll just bring the brightness up a bit.
Oh.
Yes. No, they're tapping the rhythm. Okay. They're but
Trying to tap the rhythm.
yeah. but they're seeing it on their screen. This is just a snapshot.
Don't gather round.
If people want to come down and watch, please do. Yeah.
I reckon it'd be fairly sharp.
Oh, okay. That is moving. So the line's moving.
It is pressure.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My mistake.
Same up there.
Yes.
Come on.
Okay. But if you want to come and
Yeah, anything on here, on the A line.
sorry, I thought it was just the. Okay. Okay. Here we go. And. Now we're moving it for. this is only 2 computers. Can you imagine 12? It's great having MIDI keyboards on the violas, because even keyboard violas start to get a bit of interest. Okay. I know we're going to have to finish here now, but please, if anyone's got any questions or would like to ask anything about it, I'll be up with Chris on the stand. And thank you very much for coming this morning.